Time to pull up a chair. We've got another great story for you today in the rLounge. One of the biggest lessons I've learned: the small moments matter more than the grand gestures. Today in the rLounge, love isn't about the big romantic speeches. It's about choosing each other every single day, even when it's inconvenient, boring, or hard. Up first, the only thing OP was imagining was a faithful husband. Am I the a-hole for wanting a divorce after my husband gaslit me into believing him flirting with a coworker was okay because I was just hormonal? Hi Reddit. I'm a 30-year-old female married to my 34-year-old male for over 6 years. We have 2 very beautiful children, a 3-year-old and an 8-month-old. We've been together for over 10 years, and our relationship has been amazing from the beginning. About a year ago, I was approximately 6 months pregnant, I noticed my husband paying more attention to his phone whenever he came home from work. So, one night during dinner when his phone kept dinging, I asked him about it. I asked, "Who has your attention lately?" It was a female coworker who had just transferred to his apartment, along with a good colleague of his in this group chat. I had never heard of this female coworker, so I tried to play it off as my husband being nice to this new colleague. Days went by, and that phone became the bane of my existence. It constantly dinged when I was fighting for his attention whenever he got home from work. I had enough. So, one night while he was showering, I went through his phone. And there it was, the group chat, along with Instagram messages of just my husband and his female coworker teasing each other about work. I confronted my husband immediately and confessed that I had indeed gone through his phone. I was certainly embarrassed, as this was a first for me, but I explained that I had a hunch something wasn't right and needed to see it for myself. I pointed out that the group chat was quite unusual, but the private chats on Instagram were highly inappropriate for a married man. I simply requested that he refrain from having private chats with her, but I was comfortable with the group chat. He agreed and apologized for making me feel that way. A few months later, I'm approximately 8 months pregnant, as we were returning home from a summer vacation, my son's iPad began dinging repeatedly in the backseat of my car. Unbeknownst to me, my husband had inadvertently connected his iCloud to our son's iPad. Suddenly, there she was, repeatedly appearing on the iPad, sending texts after text. And this time, there were even pictures. I was at my wit's end. I confronted my husband with such rage, anger, and distrust. His reasoning was, "You're just feeling hormonal right now. This isn't you. You're not the jealous, insecure type. Once you're no longer pregnant, you should get to know her, have a drink with her, and you'll like her." Using my own hormones and emotions against me at 8 months pregnant, I unfortunately caved and believed him and left it at that. Shortly after welcoming our newborn baby and adjusting to our new family of 4, we experienced pure bliss. However, our blissful state was short-lived as paternity leave ended, and my husband returned to work, along with my husband's female coworker. One evening, after we had tucked the children into bed, I found myself browsing through my husband's phone, admiring pictures of our children. Ding! It's her. I instantly and without hesitation opened the conversation, and my mouth dropped. It was a conversation where my husband was begging her to work a specialized assignment just with him. The 2 of them, alone in a car, 5 days a week. I felt an instant wave of regret. Regret for not listening to my gut months ago and letting him gaslight me into thinking this situation was all in my head because of my hormones. Now, I want a divorce, but my husband is now begging me to not ruin our family. So Reddit, am I the a-hole for breaking apart this family? Update. After reading all these comments and absorbing the advice, I finally realized that I'm not hormonal and not the sole reason behind this marriage's failure. So thank you for validating my feelings all along. As for my husband, I've asked him to leave the house until I've made a decision. Initially, he didn't believe me, but when I took the kids and told him he better not be here when I return with them, he was beside himself. He completely lost it. He's begged me to reconsider, offering to block her, leaving his job, and doing everything else to keep us together. But a few months ago, I politely asked you to stop texting her privately. His response was, "I thought I was just being her friend. I didn't see it the way you did." What upsets me is that he didn't take me seriously back then. But now I'm packing up our kids and leaving. He suddenly takes me seriously? We will see what happens when I get home. To be continued. Update 2. I returned home from an evening out with my kids, grateful that my husband respected my wishes and wasn't home when we arrived. After putting the kids to bed, I received a text from my husband asking if he could come over and talk so we could resolve our issues without involving the kids. I agreed. As soon as I opened the door, he handed me his phone. On the other line, I heard her, the female coworker. She was saying, "Hello? Hello?" I immediately hung up his phone and demanded to know why he wanted me to talk to her. He claimed they had been discussing all night about how they could convince me that they were nothing more than just good coworkers. I reminded him that this marriage is between the 2 of us, not 3, and that the only person who needed to address this mess was himself. He insisted that I speak with her and even had the audacity to suggest getting that drink I told you to get with her a few months ago back when you were no longer pregnant and crazy. I told him, get out and have that drink for me because we are done. It took considerable effort to get him to leave, and he sobbed about leaving his children, but I didn't care. He clearly still wants to gaslight me into believing that this is my issue with her, not his issue with disrespecting our marriage and his crazy hormonal wife. Let's see what the community's opinion is. First up, it's so disingenuous of your husband to beg you not to divorce him when he was actively pursuing this other woman until you confronted him about his behavior. Had you not gone through his phone, he'd still be sniffling around with that woman and lying to your face about it every day. You should most definitely divorce your husband. He's not worthy enough to be your partner. Next up, I'm sorry, where was all this don't ruin the family energy when he was lying to you and pursuing a relationship with another woman? Can you explain that? Another comment. Funny how that works. He had all the time in the world to make better choices, but only now that OP is done, he suddenly wants to act like a devoted husband and father. Yet another comment. Not the a-hole, but he is. Can't tell you what to do. You'll have to figure it out. Having said that, I'd kick him to the curb. One more. OP, you're the a-hole. Only if you don't divorce the prick. Immediately. Privately confer with a seasoned family law attorney to discuss your entitlements and alternatives regarding parental rights and responsibilities, as well as support and property division issues. Organize your support staff. Seek spousal and child support. He can now openly do with his coworker what he's been hiding from you. Frankly, OP, I suspect you don't know half of what transpired between Mr. Casanova and the Little Village bicycle. Divorce. Take no prisoners. OP, you are not the one ruining your family. Your husband did that the moment he prioritized another woman over you and your marriage. He repeatedly dismissed your concerns, gaslit you into thinking you were just hormonal, and only started taking you seriously when he realized he might actually face consequences. If he truly valued your marriage, he would have stopped the moment you first brought it up. The fact that you even had to bring it up is appalling. Do you think OP is the a-hole here? Up next, how microwaved chicken led to an epiphany. Love isn't enough. 5 things I wish I knew before my marriage fell apart. 34 female. I, 34 female, used to believe that love could conquer anything, that if 2 people truly cared for each other, they'd figure it out. After 10 years of marriage and a divorce I never saw coming, I now know how painfully naive that was. The love was real, but it wasn't enough. The first time I realized we were in trouble wasn't during a big fight. It was on a random Tuesday, sitting across from each other at dinner, and realizing we had nothing to say. Silence, once comfortable, now felt like a void. The little things, like him bringing me coffee in the mornings, had stopped. Resentment quietly replaced gratitude. I felt alone when we were together, and by the time we acknowledged it, we were already too far gone. After the divorce, I spiraled. Therapy and working with a relationship coach pulled me out of it. And let me tell you, there's so much no one warns you about when it comes to love, commitment, and keeping a relationship from dying in slow motion. Here's what I wish I knew before it was too late. Your nervous system decides who you love, not your logic. Ever wonder why you're drawn to certain people even if they're bad for you? That's not compatibility, it's familiarity. If you grew up with instability, your body might mistake anxiety for passion. Safe love can feel boring at first, but it's the kind that lasts. Emotional bids are everything. Every time your partner reaches out, whether it's a joke, a comment, or a random story, they're making an emotional bid for connection. Ignoring these, even accidentally, erodes intimacy over time. Dr. John Gottman found that couples who turn toward each other's bids 80% of the time stay together. That ones who don't, divorce. You're not fighting about the dishes. Arguments are rarely about what they seem. They fight about dirty plates? It's about feeling unappreciated. That argument about texting back late? It's about feeling unimportant. Dig deeper before you react. Books were my saving grace post-divorce. My coach had me read so much that I swear I could get an honorary psychology degree. These 5 changed my entire perspective on love. First one, The 7 Principles for Making Marriage Work by John Gottman. Written by Dr. John Gottman, one of the most respected relationship researchers in the world and the founder of the Gottman Institute. He can predict a divorce with a 90% accuracy based on how couples argue. If you want to understand what makes love last, read this. Second one, Nonviolent Communication by Marshall Rosenberg. It turns out most of us were never taught how to express our needs without blaming or attacking. This book is a game changer. Number 3, How to Do the Work by Dr. Nicole LaPera. If you want to heal childhood wounds that are messing up your relationships, this is a must read. Number 4, The Mastery of Love by Don Miguel Ruiz, a spiritual and psychological deep dive. It's one of the best books I've ever read on breaking free from fear-based relationships. A must read for anyone looking to cultivate real, unconditional love. Number 5, Attached by Amir Levine and Rachel Heller, the #1 bestseller in relationship psychology. If you've ever wondered why you fall into a same relationship cycle, this book will blow your mind. If you've been in a long-term relationship or marriage, what's one lesson you learned the hard way? It's wild how no one really warns you that love alone isn't enough. That moment of silence at dinner hit hard because that's exactly how it happens. One day, the comfortable quiet shifts into something heavier. The little things, the morning coffee, the check-in texts, fade. And then suddenly, you're roommates with a history instead of partners with a future. Now we ask you, what's one lesson you've learned the hard way? Up next, you know that feeling when you realize your dad's getting married again? Here's a bonus story. Time my sister and I crashed our dad's wedding party. I, 31 female, and my 3 sisters have a dad. I know everyone does, but we have one of those dads. The ones who are just not very good at fathering and have never really been around in a meaningful way. Dad, 60s, male, had a series of fiancés since our stepmother divorced him 10 years ago, and so when he told us a few years ago he was engaged, again, we didn't take him very seriously. Most of us live far away from him, and the real star of this story is S, 32 female, who lives in the same state as him. For his wedding, he asked her to cook everything, all the sandwiches for his 400 invited guests, all the sides, and even the cakes. She said yes, and as a result was incredibly stressed. Here's where it gets good. S had recently dyed the underside of her hair navy blue. You couldn't see it unless her hair was up, and it was short enough that it was hard to tell anyway. Dad told her that she needed to dye it a normal color or she would ruin his wedding pictures. So a plan was hatched. I was certainly the driving force behind this as the day of the wedding drew near and we all drove in to see our sister working her butt off and our dad not paying the least attention to us. Then I found out his new wife's kids were in the wedding party. In fact, they were the whole wedding party and we weren't. That they were all wearing navy blue and we were expected to wear any other color. Here's where the plan comes in. S was the only one who communicated what color we should wear, so I called everybody and asked for 2 things. 1, to dye their hair blue, and 2, to wear a navy blue dress. My sister L, 36 female, and J, 34 female, went shopping with me, and we hunted for 3 hours for navy blue dresses in July and purchased the best ones we could find. Then we all went to Sally's Beauty Supply and got demi-dye for our hair. We arrived the next day at the wedding with blue hair, blue dresses, and crap-eating grins. Dad wasn't thrilled. He asked what the hell we did to our hair and said something to the effect of, "Point taken." Also, 400 people did not attend. Maybe 20 did. Yes, it was incredibly satisfying. Wow. So he was fine asking your sister to cook for 400 people, but drew the line at a bit of navy blue hair. And then, as the cherry on top, not only were you not included in the wedding party, but his new wife's kids were? In navy blue, no less. It's almost like he set you up for this. The fact that only 20 people actually showed up tells it all. Do you have one of those days? Share your stories with us in the comments below. And thank you for joining us today in the rLounge. Be sure to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on our next video. Until next time.